Hello, and welcome to the Footy Podcast. To benefit Here's Help. Here's Help is a nonprofit comprehensive rehabilitation and educational agency that's been providing treatment services in South Florida since 1968. For more information on Here's Help or Footy's podcast, you can contact us at 305-685-8201. If you need help or know someone who has a substance abuse or alcohol problem, you can call our admissions office at 305-685-8201, extension 224. If you'd like to make a cash donation to Here's Help and join the fight against drug abuse, call Footy at 305-685-8201, extension 227. Now, here's Footy.
Hello once again, and welcome to the Footy Podcast. I'm Ron Hersey, and I want to thank Footy for the opportunity to be with you today. Footy is busy at the Here's Help facility with some things, so I'll be flying solo today. We come to you from the Here's Help Recovery Center, which is located in Miami Gardens. We're on 151st Street and 27th Avenue. Been providing services to people dealing with substance abuse since 1969, 1970. So it's been here for a long time. I've mentioned many times on the podcast that when I first met Footy around 1983, when I first went to Y100, and we came down to view the facility, he basically just had one house. He had purchased this house on the corner of 151st and 27th. And that was the only building on the premises. That was Here's Help. And over the years, thanks to the support of the Wingdings and to the support of some very generous folks here in the South Florida community, this facility has grown to an amazing campus and a lot of facilities off campus as well. We're coming to you from the arts building, recording and arts building, the music and arts building. This is the recording studio. Also in this building, we have the computer lab. There's an art school and also a music room, which was generously donated and furnished by Gloria and Emilio Estevan. So there's plenty of guitars and drums and pianos and things going on in that room. To the south of this building is the Dade County Public School classroom. There are two Dade County Public School teachers here on the campus. And then there are dorms. There are two dorm buildings here, plus the main building. And inside the main building is a complete professional grade kitchen with a great chef. Chef Tracy is there teaching the guys different aspects of cooking and preparing food. Off campus, there is gardening, where the food grown in the garden comes here to the kitchen, and it's prepared for the students and the clients who are recovering here. And then there's also an automotive repair class off campus. And Footy's working, probably what he's doing this morning is working on also starting a plumbing school. And the whole concept of what goes on here at Here's Help is what Footy calls recovery through education and the replacement lifestyle. These young men have been experimenting with drugs, most all of them we talk to in their early teens. I think I've spoken to a couple of guys who started experimenting with substances even before they were teenagers because they were lured into it by an older brother or an older family member. So as a result of this, very few of these young men have a high school diploma, which, as you know, is pretty crucial to any kind of employment. So that's the purpose for the Miami-Dade County Public School here, is to get these young men a high school diploma. That's the first step in that replacement lifestyle. And the other thing is finding a trade. So that's the purpose for the kitchen. The young men who go through the culinary school here receive their food handler's license, and they're taught how to prepare all kinds of food. The food's unreal. Chef Tracy really outdoes herself. And that's the whole purpose. The computer lab is to teach young men computer skills, getting them to replace all that time they spent in the world of substances with a career, or at least some sort of education that they can go out and start earning a living. That's how it all starts. So that's why where we are, and that's why it's here, and that's what it does. And we've spoken to a lot of the young men who have gone through the program. Just recently, Nick, who was on the program with us a couple times, the podcast, who even after graduating from the program is working here and still living here. So it's, and I got to tell you, given what's going on in the world these days, it's kind of a pleasure to come to this campus. It's very calm, it's very peaceful, it's very serene. You can see, it's interesting, you can see a change in these young men when they realize that there really are people that care about them. Being involved in substances at an early age, and either just leaving high school because of a lack of interest, or being kicked out of high school because of their activities on campus with substances. It's amazing to see that these young men, who a lot of whom have been homeless, living on the streets. It's amazing to see the change when they do realize that there are people that care about them, and they do have a future. No matter what the drug or the substance is, it involves a lot of cash, and that involves a lot of violence, and it's a very dangerous world that they live in at a very young age. So it's great when they come into the program. They're not real happy when they first arrive. When we speak to them and they've only been here a few days, they're not real happy about it. But after you talk to them and they've been through the program, and they start to realize what their life was like before they got here, and that they have a future. It's great to see how they I guess the phrase is come around. So that's what goes on here at Here's Help. That's the reason for this building here on 151st and 27th Avenue. And that's the reason for the great success that they have trying to help young men work through their substance abuse problems. Doesn't necessarily, there's no guarantee that you'll come here and after a couple of months walk out of this program and be substance free for the rest of your life. And they know that. They know that, you spent years getting yourself in this situation, and sometimes it takes years to get yourself out of this situation. So there's no shame in coming back. We've seen quite a few repeat young men, and it's kind of nice when they realize that, maybe I left too soon. Maybe I need to go back for a refresher. Just the fact that they entertain that concept is pretty cool. So it's a great facility. It's amazing how much it's grown. It's amazing how many young men they've helped over the years. It's great to talk to these guys. I stayed in touch with a few after they've graduated the program and gone on with their replacement life. So the website is here'shelpinc.com. There are a list of different phone numbers there that you can pick the department that you need to reach out to if you are having a substance abuse issue and you think it's time that you got some outside help. If there's someone in your family who has a substance abuse issue and you are looking for something for them, I urge you to go on the website and look it over. It's very informative. Make some phone calls, talk to some folks. They're more than happy to speak with you and see if this is right for you. But I will tell you that in the years that I've been affiliated with the program, I've been very impressed with what's going on here. And in addition to, thanks to Gloria and Emilio Estefan for this incredible music room that we have, we also need to thank Pepe Badilla of Badilla Spices, who generously donated that professional grade kitchen that we have here for the culinary school. So that's what's going on at Here's Help, and that's why we're here. That's what the podcast is all about. We originally started as a public service program on Y100. We talked with Footy last week about how he wound up being the host of this program. He went from being a guest on the public service program at Y100 to being the host, and then it evolved into the Here's Help show. And I guess it's been about 5 years ago, I ran into Footy at a little Y100 reunion me and Sonny Fox and Footy. I met at Bob Leonard's house, who was Sonny's old partner in Philadelphia, for a bit of a radio reunion. And at the time, Footy asked me if I'd be interested in being the recording engineer and being involved in putting on the public service program. And I jumped at the chance. And so because of the coronavirus, the COVID outbreak, the radio station decided to use that time that they'd allotted for the Here's Help show to provide very worthwhile information on what was happening with the coronavirus and the pandemic and the quarantine. So we made the decision to move to the podcasting world, and that's where we are now. So, and we thank you so much for watching the podcast. We loaded one yesterday, Monday, which was Martin Luther King Day. And by the time it was loaded, we got confirmation that it loaded on YouTube. We already had views. So that's very flattering. So we want to take an opportunity to thank all of you who watch the podcast, who support the podcast. We're on YouTube. We're looking at moving to some of the other platforms to increase our audience. We're working on that. So we urge you to check out the other podcast. All you have to do is go to the Here's Help channel, and you'll see the different podcasts that we've done. This is podcast 10, I believe. And we want to thank you for your comments, for subscribing. Make sure you click on the subscribe button. Click on the bell button here on the YouTube channel on the screen, and then you'll get notifications every time we load a new podcast. We try to record every Tuesday. Usually takes us a few days to get them edited and put together. So usually we're pretty good about once a week loading in a new podcast. So we thank you for checking back in and checking out the latest podcast. Last week was a lot of fun. We caught up with a lot of folks that had been at Y100 and who had moved on. It was kind of a where are they now kind of a situation. So what we want to do now is we want to take just a quick break, and we'll be right back with part 2 of the Footy Podcast.
Have you been introduced to Footy Sauce? Footy Sauce makes it easy to give ordinary chicken wings extraordinary flavor. Footy Wing Sauce is made with a perfect blend of herbs and spices. So what are you waiting for? Pour it on. Footy's Wing Sauce guarantees you a better tasting chicken wing every single time. When you fire up the grill, pour it on. Let Footy be your wingman. Kick your next party up a notch with Footy Sauce. Grab Footy's Wing Sauce and pour it on.
Welcome back to the Footy Podcast. I'm Ron Hersey, and again, I want to thank Footy for the opportunity to be with you at this time. Footy is preoccupied here at the Here's Help facility today. He's got a lot on his plate. There's a lot going on. There's always something going on at this Here's Help campus, and Footy's the head guy. So we're more than happy to come in and fly solo to give him the opportunity to continue the great work that's going on at this Here's Help facility on 151st Street, 27th Avenue. Again, the website is here'shelpinc.com. If you know someone who has a substance abuse issue, or someone, maybe it could be you who has a substance abuse issue, and you think it's time that you did something about that, we urge you to go to the website, here'shelpinc.com, find out about the facility, find out if it's right for you, and there's a list of phone numbers there that you can select from to get the correct information that you are looking for. We sort of reminisced, Footy and I, last week about the good old days of Y100, kind of got you up to date on, it was kind of a Where Are They Now show. It was kind of inspired by the fact that I had been researching a news story about something going on in Texas. So I was searching for some newscasts out in Texas to get some backstory on the story I was working on. And I clicked on a newscast. The first thing that popped up was a news anchor, Doug Dunbar, who's been anchoring television in Texas pretty much ever since he left Y100. And it was really cool to see the old, one of the guys that we used to work with back in the day at Y100. Doug Dunbar was the very popular midday host. And so we kind of took a little trip down memory lane and followed up on a lot of the popular DJs and some of the other popular folks at Y100 and kind of got you up to date on where they are. So since I'm flying solo today, And we got such a great response on the Where Are They Now segment. I thought it'd be fun to go back a little bit deeper. When I first arrived in South Florida from Fort Pierce as a young 20-year-old wet behind the ears DJ at WSHE, and I had grown up listening to that radio station. I had found a way to hook up an antenna to my radio at home and thumbtack the antenna to the ceiling of my bedroom so I could actually draw in WSHE from where I grew up in Fort Pierce. So I had always, I don't know that I ever thought I would actually get a job at WSHE, because at that time, I don't know if I ever thought I would ever even leave Fort Pierce. Not that I didn't want to, but I just wasn't sure that I had the skills that I needed to make it in the big markets. But an interesting thing happened. I had been working at an AM radio station in Vero Beach, a little 1,000-watt AM radio station. Those of you who remember the Mary Tyler Moore Show may remember Ted Knight. And to think it all started at a small daytime 1,000-watt radio station. That line always resonated with me because that's where I got started. But I was working at this little wood frame building in Vero Beach. We were so insignificant as an AM station, they wouldn't even let us cut our power at night. They made us just sign off at sundown. We weren't even allowed to broadcast at night. That's how insignificant we were. So I was on the air one afternoon. Of course, everyone else had gone home for the night. I was just waiting for sundown to hit the off button on the transmitter and playing music, being a DJ. And this black Cadillac pulled up at the front door, and this guy gets out of the passenger seat in a three-piece white suit, long flowing gray hair, and the guy gets out of the driver's seat dressed completely in black, long black hair and black sunglasses. And they walk into the building, and the guy in the white suit hands me a business card and introduces himself as Gino Milner, the owner and general manager of WSHE. Well, you can imagine. And of course, the guy in the black, dressed in black, was his son, who went by the air name Tom Judge. He was the program director of WSHE. So here I am talking to the owner and the program director of the radio station I listened to religiously every opportunity I had. And he says to me, "We've been listening to you on the way back down to Miami." And he said, "You have my card. If you ever want to come to Miami and go to work, give me a call." And you can imagine. And the first thing that was going through my mind was, this was the 80s. So I can't live in Miami. They have crime. I'm living up here in Mayberry. I'm not going down there where, this was at the height of the cocaine cowboys, when they were so tired of trying to find ways to launder money that they just went out and bought their own bank. But eventually I did find my way down to WSHE. I had moved on in Fort Pierce to an FM country station, Wave 105, and our program director had taken a day off, a personal day, and he had come down to Miami to interview to be the program director of WSHE's AM station, WSRF, and he got the job. So he comes back the next day, and he calls me into the studio, soundproof studio, and he closes the door. And he says, "I have good news and bad news." I said, "Well, what's the bad news?" He goes, "Well, the bad news is I'm leaving. I've got a job in Miami." And I said, "Okay, what's the good news?" He goes, "Well, the good news is I went into your desk and I took your demo tape. And if you want a job as a production director and the morning man at WSRF, it's yours." So that's how I wound up here in Miami. And some of the folks that I was only in the building my first day at 6 o'clock in the morning for about 15 minutes before I met Sonny Fox, which was the beginning of a 25-year ride that I'll never forget if I could only remember. But it was amazing. We went from She to Y100, and then we wound up working at Magic for 7 years, and then we wound up at KISS for 3 years. So it was everything I had ever dreamed of and more with a career in radio. I would have never expected to do and see and experience all the things that I was capable of doing. But she was an incredible, legendary radio station. It was a great honor to be there. Sonny was the first guy I met when I was there. One of the other names familiar to fans of Skip Herman, was Sonny's partner. The show at the time was Fox and Herman. And Skip is over on the west coast of Florida. And from what I understand, he's either has his own ad agency or he is working for an advertising agency. Another very popular personality on WSHE at the time was Nancy G., who was very popular and a great, great lady, and rose to fame as one of the few female disc jockeys in the United States to appear in Playboy magazine. Randy Thomas, also a very popular name from the old Waxy days, also appeared. So Nancy and Skip have been together for many, many years, and they've got kids now, and they're both over on the West Coast. One of the other great personalities from those days was Neil Mirsky, who was the program director when I went to work there, and Neil and I worked together for many, many years. After Neil's departure from WSHE, he wound up in New York and wound up being one of the guys who started MTV. He was very instrumental in casting the personalities that were on MTV, and very instrumental in getting that off the ground. And of course, Mark Goodman and Nina Blackwood, Martha Quinn, and that whole group, all those folks were handpicked by Neil and his team. And it was an amazing success for a long time, for a lot of years, until they stopped playing music, until MTV Music Television stopped being music television, and it got a lot of competition from a lot of other channels. But for a while, when they first came on, it really changed the entire face of popular music at the time. I remember Sonny was pointing out that up until MTV came along, some of the bigger bands were like the Allman Brothers Band and Leonard Skinner, the Southern rock bands, Charlie Daniels Band. And when MTV came in and they started pumping money into music videos, they started hiring motion picture producers and using motion picture film instead of videotape, bringing in makeup artists. And Sonny said, MTV was the end of the ugly rock star. We went from the Allman Brothers and those Southern rock bands with long hair and beards and flannel shirts and ragged blue jeans to Duran Duran, these incredibly beautiful guys with makeup constantly and hairstylists and designer wardrobes and millions of dollars spent on videos. So it really did alter the course of music. And it was interesting because when MTV first hit, there were classic rock stations. There were what we called top 40 stations. And you would never hear a classic rock song on a top 40 station, and vice versa. I can remember when I worked at WOVV in Fort Pierce, we had this rule that we would play a song on the rock station, but the minute we heard it, because we were rock at night and then top 40 during the day. So we'd play a song like I remember Ramblin' Man was a perfect example of that. When the Allman Brothers album Brothers and Sisters came out, we played the hell out of Ramblin' Man. The minute we heard it during the day on the top 40 side of the station, we dropped it. We would not touch it after that. So it was a very clear, defined line between what was rock and what was top 40. Well, when MTV came along, that changed everything. And when Sonny and I made our move from She to Y100, we went from playing Duran Duran and Men at Work and Flock of Seagulls and ABC to Y100, where in addition to the Lionel Richies and the Michael Jacksons, we were also playing the Men at Work and the Duran Duran and the Flock of Seagulls and Missing Persons and all those pop synth bands. So it was amazing the influence that MTV had, where almost overnight didn't matter what format you were. If MTV was playing a video, you were playing that song, and you didn't give a damn who else was playing it, because that was how powerful they were. What a huge influence MTV had been. So we were reminiscing about WSHE, Neil Mursky and Sonny Fox, Drew Townsend, who was a good friend and a great DJ, had been hired by Neil. He came down from Worcester. Drew Townsend worked for many, many years for NPR up along the Treasure Coast. Michael Ross, New York Michael Ross, who was my good buddy, worked afternoons for a long time. Michael was such a crazy dude. He worked late afternoons, and so the janitor would always be in the building when Michael was there. Louis, this little old Jewish guy. And Michael started interviewing him on his show. Michael nicknamed him Louis the Broom because he was the janitor. And Louis, this little old Jewish guy, became this like big personality. What? No, this rock and roll, it's too loud. I don't like that. It's too loud. Play it a little quieter. John Ford was the all-night guy. John went on with Bill Murphy, another very popular DJ here in the South Florida area, popular from his days on Big 105.9, and later on working for, used to be Magic, I forget what. It's hard to keep track. They've changed formats so many times, but Bill Murphy and John Ford wound up in Dallas, where they pretty much pioneered what we know now as the rock radio format. Classic rock is one format, but new rock, current rock, there wasn't really an outlet for it at the time, because most of the rock stations were playing the classic songs, the old stuff. So they put The Edge was their radio station. They called it The Edge in Dallas. And John and Bill pretty much pioneered that format, which is the rock format of the present day. John was the all-night guy, and I had to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was never one to get up early in the morning to begin with. And with the party lifestyle that came along with being at SHE, I wasn't one who was ever in bed before late at night. And I was terrified of sleeping through my alarm and missing the show and getting fired or incurring the wrath of Sonny. So I used to pay John, the all-night guy. I knew he was at the station, and I knew he was awake. So I used to pay him to call me every morning at my house and wake me up to make sure that I get up. So thank you, John. I appreciate all the times you saved my skin by calling me up. I remember one time, I think it was the staff Christmas party. And keep in mind, I had come from Fort Pierce in November. So I'd only been here like 2 months when I attended my first WSHE Christmas party, which for you who've been here for a long time was at Faces in the Grove, in the Mayfair in Coconut Grove. How's that for a call back to the old days? But it was so out of control that I knew that if I got home, I'd never make it to the radio station. So I just went and slept on the couch in the lobby and paid John to come wake me up on the couch in the lobby. And so that worked out well. So that became, I spent a lot of time sleeping on that couch in the lobby. So thank you, John, for helping me keep my job. And there were a lot of other great folks who went in and out of that facility. Those are the ones that I remember the most. And that little one-story building that we worked out of, which was located behind the Silver Oaks Trailer Park, which was off of Davie Road in Davie, right across the street from Broward Community College. A lot of great memories from those days. Got an opportunity to interview a lot of great artists. Got a chance to meet Charlie Daniels, who I spoke to several times after that, and we always laughed about that first interview we did together in the WSHE studios. Still have a photo of him with my oldest daughter, Becky. Got a chance to talk to Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick, had a great interview with him. As it turned out, a lot of the artists would come to the radio station for interviews. And we didn't want to put them on live because you didn't know what was going to take place, so we would pre-record the interviews. And I don't think any of them ever made it to the air. So no one wanted to do them. No one wanted to bother doing an interview that wasn't going to make it on the air. We did the interview to appease the client and the artist and the label, but, we weren't going to put a 10-minute interview on the air in the middle of a music station. So because nobody wanted to waste their time, it somehow fell into my shoulders. And I was more than God to be able to sit in the studio for 15 minutes with one of my idols and ask them questions. I jumped at that chance. So I got a chance to talk to a lot of stars, especially at WSHE, a lot of the folks that I admired. And it never once occurred to me to keep those interviews. I can't tell you. And not just at WSHE, but at Y100 and at Power 99 in Atlanta. All the artists that I interviewed, Linda Ronstadt and Dan Aykroyd and Donna Summer, the list just goes on. And I never kept a single one. It wasn't until Sonny and I got to Kiss and started going to Nashville a couple times a year that Sonny was like, we should hold on to these. We need to keep these. And so those interviews I have. So I'm very proud at least of the fact that I kept some of the interviews that we did at WKIS. It was one of the ones I'll never forget. And we interviewed him a couple times with Keith Urban. And he had just come to the United States. He was basically a session artist. I think he had one CD out. He was so insignificant that one time we interviewed him in Nashville during the CMA Awards. He was going to perform his new single, but he was so insignificant they wouldn't let him play the whole song. They introduced him, and he played about 30 seconds of his song, and then they cut to commercials. And God, we just tortured him about that. But I think now it's so funny to see what a huge artist, what a huge star that he's become, and how insignificant he was in the music business when we first interviewed him. But thank God for Sonny, because Sonny was notorious about keeping interviews, and we would run them every time something significant would happen from one of these artists. We'd go back and play a section of that interview, and thank God somewhere along the line I managed to get those interviews. Sonny sent me copies of all of them, so at least I have those. God, man, I wish I'd have kept some of those early interviews from WSHE. That would have been really something to have held on to. But that station is gone by the wayside. Those call letters, WSHE, are now being utilized by a radio station in Chicago. And we've all gone on to other things. Still keep in touch with John Ford. Still chat with Neil Mursky from time to time. Neil's now retired, living in Delray Beach. John Ford, I don't even know where John is. We talk online all the time, and he's blogging. And if you're a big John Ford fan, you might want to check him out on LinkedIn and read his blogs. They're great, as always. Always enjoyed John's sense of humor. And he's one of those guys that's survived, like a lot of us have, the industry. So it was one of those things I never thought I'd be able to experience, and it did not disappoint. My days at WSHU were great fun, and the listeners were great, and we certainly appreciated all of you that came to our appearances and came to our concerts and flooded the request line with requests. So thank you for that. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Footy Podcast. Again, I'd like to thank Footy so much for this opportunity to fly solo and be with you. It's always great to reminisce about the old days. And there are a lot of natives here in South Florida, and we appreciate your support in enjoying the podcast. And if there's a topic that you would like us to cover, if there's something that we haven't talked about that you think we would make a good podcast, we'd like to hear that. Just click on the comments section here and tell us about some of the things you'd like us to cover. We'd be more than happy to do that, and we're always happy to get suggestions about different shows. Again, we are coming to you from the Here's Help facility on 151st and 27th Avenue in Miami Gardens. If you are suffering from a substance abuse issue, or if you know someone who is, or we urge you to go to here'shelpinc.com, research the facility, check it out. There's a list of phone call numbers that you can call to get the information that you may be looking for. If you don't find what you're looking for on the website, there's plenty of people here that are more than happy to answer your questions. And as I can tell you, if you are out there with an issue with substances, this is a great place for you to be. I've seen a lot of success stories here. I've seen a lot of young men turn their lives around. So if you're having an issue, now's the time, and this is the place to do it. So thank you all for your support. Thanks for watching our podcast. Gosh, like I said, the last one we uploaded, we got views at the same time, simultaneously with being notified it was loaded up. So we thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned. We'll have more podcasts coming up. I'm sure Footy will be back with me next week.
Thank you for listening to the Footy Podcast. To benefit, here's help. For more information about the Footy Podcast or Here's Help, contact us at 305-685-8201. If you need help or know someone who has a substance abuse or alcohol problem, you can call our admissions office at 305-685-8201, extension 224. If you'd like to make a cash donation to Here's Help and join the fight against drug abuse, call Footy at 305-685-8201, extension 227. The executive producer of the Footy Podcast is Sam Zarko, COO of Here's Help.